We now bring you a conversation to Ramanathan Iyyer, a cardiologist serving at the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences, Prashanthi Gram. In conversation with him is Professor G. Venkataraman. Over to Professor G. Venkataraman.
Sairam, Dr. Iyyer. I suppose I could call you Dr. Iyyer.
Yeah.
Very good. And let me welcome you to the studios of Radio Sai.
Thank you very much.
I should say, normally when I welcome guests, I don't describe them. I just straight away start asking them questions. But in your case, if you permit me, I would like to say a word or two about you to our listeners, because your personality calls for that. If I were to tell your listeners what you look like or describe you, I would say you are a rishi wearing a doctor's dress and walking around with a stethoscope. It's very difficult for me to associate you with a doctor. You always give me the impression of a rishi. It's not just your hairstyle or anything like that, but there is a distinct spiritual aura about you, and that's not very common. I'm not trying to flatter you or anything like that, but it's a fact. I have noticed it, and I would like this listeners to know about it so that they can understand the purpose of the questions that I'm going to ask you shortly. So before we get down to those things, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were educated, where you were born, something that would be of general interest.
Basically, I'm of Kerala descent. That is, the parents are of Kerala descent.
It's only the Keralists who use the word Iyyer. The moment you hear the word Iyyer, I know you're from Kerala.
But as Swami willed it, my association with Kerala was only birth at Calicut.
I see.
And at the 6th month of age, I was transported to Bhilai, currently in Chhattisgarh.
Steel City.
Steel City, because my father was working
Are you
there.
an Iron Man?
I'm supposed to be.
Very good.
And I grew up on because that is known as the rice bowl of Madhya Pradesh. It used to be known as the rice bowl of Madhya Pradesh. And I grew up on that excellent rice of Chhattisgarh. And I had my schooling in the steel plant schools only. And by Swami's grace, I had a good academic career. And at somewhere when I was in class 5, I distinctly remember, I felt such a strong compulsion that I'll be going to medicine only.
Is there any reason why you felt that compulsion?
Right from childhood, I would say, maybe by the age of 5 years, which I can remember, anybody with, like, suppose my father had a fever or mother had a vomiting, I had this innate, I would say, instinct in me to nurse. At that point in time, I didn't know why. I didn't have any kind of abhorrence on cleaning wounds or dressing wounds. And this was going on, and it was taken as very naturally. But when I was in 5th, I don't know, I made up a thing that, okay, this is what excited me most, or what I would say, the greatest miracle of Bhagwan on earth is a new life coming in. And I still remember, I have spent hours during the school days going to a nearby pond, sitting by the side, watching fishes, watching tadpoles. And my father used to be very mad at me because he obviously, because the kind of background we are, he expected that only you're supposed to study. And this went on till I reached 10th. I got very good marks in 10th class. And he insisted I should be appearing for my IIT because that was his dream.
Standard parental dream, shall I say. Yes.
So I told, look, I fully respect your decision. But personally, I don't know, I am drawn towards the biological sciences. And that's where I feel my aptitude lies. So kindly permit me to do. He said, okay, let's have a sort of compromise. Those days we had a branch called biomaths, where you had to do both.
Do they have such things in India? I never thought they had such a thing.
They had it in our time. And I don't know, paradoxically, the biomaths was reserved only for the top-notch students.
I see.
To me, if you ask me, it's a very foolish concept, because by the time you are in 11th, you should have decided where you want to go. I had no choice. I had to satisfy my parents, so I went there. 11th, when I finished, I got very good marks in 11th class. Father insisted I should appear for the IIT. I said, don't worry, I'll appear next year. So I could buy one more year's time. I finished my 12th. I got very good. My 12th was the CBSE board exam. I got the highest in biology in the school, 90%. And I had the distinction of getting the highest ever in English language, which was for a science student getting 82% marks in English, was like a rarity. Because you will get very good marks in the science subjects. English you will get around 60, 65, that's all. On the strength of which I was awarded the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Scholarship for pursuing higher education. And I appeared for my medical entrance. Meanwhile, I didn't appear for IIT, of course, with due apologies to my father. But I got call from the Regional Engineering College. I somehow persuaded him that please don't force me to go there. And I landed up in my medicine. I did my MBBS at Raipur Medical College. Academic career-wise, it was reasonably good.
Rather interesting, when I was young, there was no IIT at that time. They came much later. But somehow I was sort of pushed into engineering by my father in the Indian Institute of Science. That is a postgraduate degree, diploma they used to give in those days. But my heart was in pure science. And after 1 year, my father gave me liberation and I went to pure science. So we have had similar kind of experiences in the past. Carry on, please.
I also basically was a pure sciences man. But then, the compulsion of having a career, and more so, for whatever reason, any kind of a suffering right from my childhood, it used to sort of stimulate in me a desire. Can I do something to alleviate the suffering?
Okay, you had an innate sense of service. Now, this is very interesting. I'll come to that in a minute. But before that, I want to pick up on one of the remarks you made very casually, almost in passing, that you were excited by the coming of life.
Yes.
I was reminded of a phrase that occurs in Devi Bhagavatam. It says one of the greatest miracles is bones growing within a woman.
Yes.
And I was really deeply struck by it because normally, as you know, when bone breaks, it is very hard for it to grow. And here an entire skeleton grows within a human being. That was described as a very great miracle in Devi Bhagavatam, and I was really amazed to see the depth of their perception. It's really wonderful.
Exactly. See, what I mean to say, today modern science, now my children are studying the same in Bhagwan school. So when I go through their books, I remember my days when they started off with describing the one-celled amoeba, and then you go on to various classes, classifications, till you reach the mammals. That was the stage one. Then I get a chance to enter medical field. In fact, very interesting. It may be interesting to the listeners. The day I was going to join medical college, my father asked me, "Shall I accompany you to the college?" I said, "People will make fun. Don't do that. I am a grown-up. I am 18 years. No, not that. Because you go there, first year medicine, you have to dissect dead bodies. So if you get scared or anything, for that, shall I accompany you?" I said, "I don't think I should get scared." Still, he was, after all, father is father. He said, "If you happen to have any such emotions, kindly come back immediately. Don't get upset." So anyway, I went there and we were, after the first or second day, we were ushered into the anatomy dissection hall, where you had around 7 tables, each table with one preserved cadaver for dissection. And there is where we had our first lessons in human anatomy. I did, of course, see the experience of many of my classmates, some of whom who refused to eat food for a number of days, some of whom who had sleepless nights. But I never had any such kind of a fear, because to me it was the greatest mystery which was being unraveled before me. Maybe I was seeing it, studying it on a dead body, but still it was the greatest mystery. We have, you may be aware, the MBBS is divided
into... In fact, now that you mention it, I should mention 2 things for our own benefit and reminder as well as that of the listeners. One is the way Lord Krishna describes the human power in the Gita, I believe in the 10th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Swami also says that the human body is the most wonderful machine in creation, and it far exceeds anything that was built by man. It's, of course, you will agree with that.
I agree 100%, sir.
200%.
Because I have witnessed both. See, today if you ask me, you may be aware the medical curriculum in this country is divided into 3 sections: preclinical, paraclinical and clinical. For me, the greatest excitement was when I entered the clinical, because I could see cases, I could examine cases, I could see their progress. That was the excitement part of it. Till when I was in my final MBBS, we had postings in obstetrics and gynecology. Now, surprisingly, there was, at least in the college where I studied, there was a strange kind of an inertia amongst boys going for the postings in obstetrics gynecology. I was the lone exception in my batch. I used to go. So one of the female residents, the postgraduate there, she commented, up till now, no boys used to come. Why are you coming? I said, well, it's a part of the curriculum and we are supposed to witness 20 deliveries and prepare a record of it. That she said, no problem. You see the register and note down the date and time and the deliveries and say, and I'll sign on it. I said, I don't want that. I want to see, I want to learn. So she was a little bit not very happy. She said, okay, you come, because daytime the college will be there. Come after night 8 p.m. So one night I went. She was there on duty and the lady was in labor. This was my first witness of a human birth. Till then, there was imagination, you had seen books, you had seen. I went there. It was a normal labor, it was progressing. The head came out. What we call in medical terms as the crowning. The head comes out. Once the crowning takes place, in the next 15 to 20 seconds, the remaining body should come out. Here, the body didn't come out. And this lady, who is a postgraduate in gynecology, she's struggling and she's telling the young lady, you please strain, you have to bring out, otherwise the baby will choke to death, please strain. And whatever is happening, the baby is not coming out. At that point in time, I don't know, because I was just a student. I have not yet passed my MBBS. I was just a student. I don't know what came into my brain. It was definitely an extracorporeal force. I won't say it's intelligence. It's an extracorporeal force. I wasn't wearing any glove or anything because I was supposed to just stand and watch. I just brushed her hand aside, insinuate my hand beneath the chin of the child, put my naked finger right, an ungloved hand, and there was the cord lying around the neck. I just brought it out and the baby slipped out. And all of it happened in about 10 seconds.
Literally, you saved the baby's life.
Yes, the child was born alive, and the moment the baby came out, it was started crying. Anyway, that was over. The cord was cut and the baby was bathed. It was examined. Luckily, the baby was 100% safe. Then I had a tough time. This resident came and she started firing me. All this time, you have bluffed to me that you have never attended what we call the conduction duty, labor duty, the conduction duty. How did you do it? I said, look, there is no way I can prove that I am correct. But if you believe me that I am telling the truth, this is the first ever time I have seen. She said, how could you recognize that there was a cord around the neck? The umbilical cord had wound around the neck. Had you attempted to pull like that, the baby would have got strangulated to death. I said, kindly don't ask me that question. Even I am surprised how this thought came to my mind.
I suppose it was the destiny that steered you to save the life of that child. That child was destined to live and you were the instrumentality.
That is one way of looking at it.
Yes.
What I say is, today in medical science, I am now almost 20 years in this field now. Now when I look back, this is just one example which I say is the beginning. I have numerous such. All such instances when the correct thing struck your brain at the correct time and a life got saved. Each of it was the proof of divinity of Bhagwan.
Exactly, that's what I am saying. You see, the divine has used you as the instrument to save that life. Okay, now I want to come back to another point and make a passing reference because we have so many interesting things to discuss. Your perception of medicine as a field of service. What strikes me there is something that happened to me many years ago. I was in a place called Kalpakam where we had an atomic energy research center. And there was a school there, and I used to be closely connected with the school for a number of reasons, including the fact that my son was studying there. And I went there in 1973, first time. And I used to ask the children, what would you like to be when you grow big, become big? They would all say, oh, I want to become a doctor. Why a doctor? I want to serve the country and all that. This was all the way up to 12th standard. A few years later, after 10th standard, there was no desire to become a doctor and go to villages. They said, I want to become an engineer and go off to America. Some more years, after 8th standard, the evaporation to disappear. After a few more years, after 5th standard, the evaporation to serve disappeared. What I'm trying to say is, children instinctively knew that medical profession was a profession of service. But unfortunately, our ambience got so corrupted that they got diverted away from service.
That's a sad fact, sir.
That's a sad fact. Today, I don't think anybody looks upon the medical profession as a profession of service at all.
See, all said and done, when Bhagwan stated long back that education and health should be free, it should not be an object of commerce. That is what Bhagwan meant. By free meaning, of course, there will be setups wherein you may, because of the inputs, cost inputs, you may have to charge. But it should not be a commercial dealing.
In fact, he made one very strong statement in a summer course. He said, today, these professional educations, especially that of medicine, has become so expensive that after they graduate, the doctors think all the time of recouping the money that they have spent. So they become extremely money oriented.
Yes.
And this is the reason why nexus between jobs, money and education should be broken. That is what he said. Now coming to something, I want to know a little bit about your spiritual background and the way it influenced your professional outlook, if at all. I presume it has. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your spiritual background?
At the age of 13, due to compulsions of the origin by birth, I was initiated into the sacred thread.
Okay.
At that point in time, I happened to be the only son and the only grandson also at that time. So I happened to ask my father as well as my grandfather, okay, why are you making me go through all these things? So I was just keep your mouth shut. This is what we have been doing through generations. You are also supposed to undergo that. I said, fine, okay. I don't mind. I underwent through that because there was a compulsion. But to me, always that remained. Because possibly one day when my grandfather was not in a good mood, I asked him rather persistently, why should I go through all these things of a little bit tonsuring my hair and keeping a tough hair and all those things, wearing a loincloth and going for a symbolic begging. I said, to me it looks strange. So he said, don't talk all those things. You're born in a Brahmin family, you're supposed to undergo that.
I know that.
No, that I think... the first time, you see, I was 13 years of age. I was on the threshold of adolescence. I was slowly developing independent thinking. It sowed the seed for, he said, you are a Brahmin, you have to do it. Now, I told you from the beginning, I had a leaning towards the science. Could birth determine Brahminism? This was the next question, which came to my mind. 2, are there genes which determine Brahminism? Because I was because I told you from the beginning I was a natural sciences man. So these are the questions to which I can't ask anybody, can't get an answer. But they remained questions. I went to medical college. I was dutifully doing my Sandhya Vandana. I was doing my Gayatri Japa and all. But let me be very honest to you and all the listeners that all those years it was a mere mechanical ritual rather than my understanding it. Luckily, one good friend of my father, it was a practice, you may be aware of it, that once you are put in the thread, any elder comes, you are supposed to tell the Abhivadaya mantra and touch the feet. He gifted me a book called Sandhya Vandana with the Sanskrit verses and English translation, costing 2 rupees, published by Bharati Vidya Bhavan, authored by P. Seshadri. Now, this P. Seshadri Iyer happened to be a distant relative of my father. To date, amongst the few books which have really influenced me, one was this book. I went carefully through all the mantras, studied their meaning, and the last before the namaskara you do, that last when I was reading that, it thrilled me at that age. Akashat padidam toyam sagaram pratigacchati sarvadeva namaskaram Sri Keshavam pratigacchati. Even today, 1976 June 2nd, my Upanayanam was held. Even today, many times, that is the essence of Advaita, ultimate. And such a beautiful symbolism they could draw at that point in time, that water falling anywhere in the earth, final destination is the ocean. Similarly, whatever form of God or Godhead you are offering your salutations, your prostrations, it's going to only one supreme absolute. So that was my, you can say, the first spiritual baptism. But it didn't progress further because I didn't have anybody to exchange notes with. Somewhere in the medical college, I did go through what is known as lot of spiritual crisis. There was a vacuum, there was an emptiness. I wanted to go to medical field. I got the field. I was seeing patients. I could serve them, but still the emptiness remained. I had seen birth. I had seen deaths also.
What kind of emptiness was it?
At that point in time, I could not describe, I could not explain. I used to question myself. Look, I wanted to come to medicine. I defied even my father.
Something was still missing.
Still missing.
Did you try to fill that emptiness with something?
I was doing my regular Sandhya Vandana.
No, that's all right. But did you try to read something else or go after some gurus or anything like that?
Gurus, the biggest problem, as I told you, I came from a very strict background. So the strict order was now that you entered medicine, till you pass out of medicine, no running around gurus and all those business.
Okay, you are banned from gurus.
But right. I have a very interesting episode for here. 1983, I finished my first MBBS and I was in very dire straits. It was this thing which was troubling me. I had read about Bhagavan. I had read, in fact, the first book was when I was in primary school. I had read the Howard Murfitt's Man of Miracles. But then beyond that, and the first issue of the magazine called Sunday, Amrita Bazar Patrika group from Calcutta, the first issue, the cover was Bhagwan. And I had cut the cover and that adorned the bedroom in our house for many, many, many years. So that the moment I get up, I see. Now you may ask me, why was I drawn? I have no answer. I was drawn to the
You are drawn because you are destined to be drawn.
Agree. that is, I realized, no, but at that, I am talking, the Ramnath who was there at that point in time didn't realize this. And 83, I finished my exam. Month of May, my parents are supposed to go to Bombay to attend the thread ceremony of my cousins. I don't know, of all things I tell my parents, I told my father, I don't know, I am not feeling at ease. Why don't you do one thing? I'll go to, I come to know that in summers, Bhagavan is there at Whitefield, Bangalore. I'll go, I'll just have a darshan and I'll join you in Kerala. My father got very angry. He said, what nonsense, you are gone for medicine, you want to run around, chase gurus and babas and all, you come along with us to Bombay. Fine, I had no alternative, I accompanied. You will be surprised, sir, today, even now when I say I get goose pimples. I reach Bombay and we are staying in my mother's elder sister's house. They stay at Sion. And we reach there. Few hours after reaching, that my aunt, she tells me, hey, I have something to tell you. I said, please. She happened to be a widow. She had 3 children and she told me, hey, tomorrow Sathya Sai Baba is coming to Andheri. Can you accompany me? Now imagine what would be the feelings which would have gone through my mind when she tells me this. When just a couple of weeks back I have had a very strong argument with my father at home.
So he drew you to him in spite of what so-called this is fantastic.
Then same again I went to Andheri, had Bhagwan's darshan within a distance of 3 to 4 feet. Now don't ask me at that point, simply had the darshan, I was thrilled, that's all. Came
naturally. See, if the heart is pure, it resonates immediately. That's very important.
And I came out, I pursued my second MBBS, final MBBS, I again entered into a vacuum, the same thing. During the second MBBS, my teacher and whom I would call my first guru, he was a PhD in zoology, very excellent in spirituality, in yoga, in Ayurveda. He is the one who gave me all those legacies. He told me, hey, Ramnath, ek book laya hu. I brought a book. It's a must read for you. That was the book Autobiography Yogi by Paramahamsa Yogananda.
Famous book.
So I told, look sir, some sadhu sannyasi must have written things. Why do you want me to waste time? He said, look, I am not asking you to buy it or anything. I have bought it. Kindly go through it. If you feel it's useless, return it back tomorrow morning. I think that was the first ever time in my life that from 10 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. in the morning, cover to cover, I finished one book. And even today, that book happens to be an addiction because that was the true spiritual baptism for me. That was where the inquiry started. And as I told you, I had many unanswered questions.
From yearning, you went to inquiry.
And the answers came by themselves, not by any discussion. Who is a Brahmin? What is a Brahmin? It is not by birth. It is by karma. I didn't get it through books. These are all coming.
By the way, I suppose you know that this question was asked of Yudhishthira in the Pariksha.
Yes, but I read it much later.
That's true. But this is an old question.
Yes.
It's an old question. And the answer is also old. Only thing is we don't know the answer.
Yes.
But for the benefit of the listeners, you may explain what the question is and what the answer is.
No, what I am going to dwell upon is how, when the inquiry is sincere, the answers do get implanted in the brain. This answer came to me. I said, yes.
The long and short of it, as Swami says, is a brahmachari is one who is immersed in Brahman.
Yes, I agree.
And he says, don't define a brahmachari as an unmarried physical bachelor. That's not a brahmachari. A man may be married, a man may be a sannyasi, a man may be anything. If he is immersed in Brahman, he is a brahmachari. Period.
So then a definition came into my brain, which I even now quote when I talk to some of my friends. Any individual who strives for, in all his activities, all his living duration, to attain or know Brahman, he is a Brahmin. Which means, if you extend it, you can have a Christian by faith who is a Brahmin, you can have a Muslim by faith who is a Brahmin. Brahminism
Absolutely. It's a philosophy.
And this insight came. It's a different story that later on when I bought, when I started getting my internship money, 80% of the money I burnt off in books. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Shivananji, Swami Vivekananji, and it was going on. And
what about Ramana?
Ramana Maharshi joined later on, no doubt about it, and still continues to be an all-time favorite. And all said and done, in spite of going all those things, there was this yearning that I should have my own experience. This is okay based on what they said. I should know it for myself. And how that thing came was...
Know what? You say I should know it myself.
Yeah.
What is it
people talk of divinity. People talk of superpower. People talk of supreme power, supreme absolute, Brahman.
Yes.
Yes, it's very easy. I can give a 1 hour lecture.
Absolutely.
But the question is, do I realize that today Swamiji is there in physical form, in flesh and blood before us? But the moment he comes in front of us, are we still aware that here is a divinity absolute standing in front of us? The moment he comes and asks me, how are you? The moment you feel that, oh, he's just...
Yes.
And my prayer to him has been, Bhagavan, kindly don't put that veil of Maya on me. I never for a moment should I ever get covered by that delusion and forget who you actually are. That has been my prayer always. And today, by His grace, when an emergency case comes, when I am dealing with it, I dissociate myself from it. I just hand over. And
Okay, this is what I think I should talk to you about, because that brings spirituality and medicine together. What I would like to ask you is the following. How has this quest for Brahman, this yearning to know Brahman, shall I put it that way, influenced your professional life? I have talked to many doctors sitting here in this very studio, and of course for them Brahman was Swami because they don't have a Vedantic background. But Brahman is Swami and Swami is Brahman, as we know. And they have told me and described to many experiences wherein their spiritual yearning, etc., translated into actions related to their profession. So can you tell us something of a similar nature concerning yourself?
Definitely.
Please.
See, I told you I had seen birth.
Yes.
I conducted so many deliveries during my internship. Then came a stage wherein when I became a little bit more senior, I was pursuing my post-graduation. I had to certify deaths. Now, this was a sort of conflict going on inside. On one hand, you are reading tomes and tomes, weighing tons, and you feel that you can save anybody on the earth. And on the other, you find that in spite of the best of the efforts, few cases die. And this initially was very painful for me. But I didn't have an answer at that point in time. I used to ask my professors, and that's okay. That's part of life. You can't be saving everybody who walks in. Difficult. I passed my post-graduation. I joined you may be aware, the Bhilai Steel Plant had an 850-bedded hospital, huge hospital. It's an industrial hospital catering to 60,000 employees and their families. I grew up going to the hospital to see patients, colleagues of my father who were admitted there. I used to go and carrying some tiffin or something. And there were many moments, many evenings which I have gone with my father, standing outside that foreboding intensive care unit door with that, what I call the blackboard, with that 6 or 7 names put and 4 columns are there. DIL, dangerously ill listed, critical, serious, improving. And mechanically, a nurse will come after every duty changeover. She'll rub that tick mark, and a dangerously ill listed may go to serious or critical.
Rewrite the scoreboard
and go. I have seen this as a schoolboy. I grew up with it. And see that divine hand. I find myself in 1990, I am on the other side of the ICU door. I am the ICU duty doctor. So when that point there was a flood wave of emotions. When I said, oh look, I have grown up in this very place, seeing the emotions of people who are gathered outside, what is going through them, what is happening in their minds, thinking about their kith and kin inside, because they're very strict. Nobody is allowed inside the ICU. And today here I am the duty doctor of the ICU, and everything depends. They have put the trust on me. So that brought about a sense of extreme caution and a sense of extreme alertness in dealing with every case, number one. Number two, it's an industrial hospital. It's intensive care. Very bad cases used to come. Deaths used to occur. That was when the most fundamental question came into the brain. In spite of the same amount of dedication and input and care put in for management of 2 similarly matched patients, one survives, one dies. Why? Medical science could not give a plausible scientific answer. That is when slowly, but I agree it's very difficult, but because always that the demon ego surfaces. No, the moment you have 10 successes, that these 10 cases I managed the infarction, they survived and went. What about the other 4 cases which also you managed and they died? What went wrong there? That was the first beginning of the realization that we are mere players in this drama.
That's the word I was going to come to. So you actually hit upon that.
We are the mere players in the drama.
So shall I put it this way, that your professional experience combined with your spiritual background helped you to realize that we are instruments in the hands of God? Actually, people say, please God, make me a good instrument. I laugh at this prayer because everybody is an instrument in the hands of God. Only the knowledgeable people realize it. Others are ego-driven. They think they are not instruments in anybody's hand.
I agree with you 100%.
But your background and your sense of service and your sense of inquiry made you realize that we are just instruments.
Absolutely.
Destiny decides. As Krishna says in the 11th chapter, I have decided what's going to happen. Here's your chance. Take it or leave it.
That's all. See, in 1986, when Jayendra Saraswati Swamiji, the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram, he came to Bilai. 3 days I was put as his sort of personal attendant because I was a local man. And I was doing my internship. So, and biting cold, December 5th, 6th and 7th in Bilai with 6 and 7 degrees temperature. Topless, you have to stand outside the door of his room from morning 4:30 to night 11 o'clock. Because I know the local people, so many people. I was curiously watching this Swamiji, so many dignitaries coming, so many ordinary devotees coming. Suddenly you will say, you come tomorrow at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. that man comes, he takes him inside, initiates him to some mantra, gives him some shaligrama or a shivalinga and let me make it. I had this yearning. In the pursuit, I have read so many books on about how to understand the Shakti and so many things I have done. So last day I picked up my courage and said, Swamiji, if you pardon me, I want to ask some questions. Yeah, please go ahead, he said. I said, in what way am I not having all those credentials which all the others are having, not to have a mantra initiation from you? Even I also wish to pursue. So he laughed. He said, there is no need for any mantra for you. What apparently you have selected as your profession, this will ultimately lead you to mukti. At that point in time, to me, it sounded very absurd. What is this man telling? I asked him for a mantra and he's telling me this, that your profession, I am a medical line dealing with patient and disease and death. It is going to lead me to mukti. I didn't realize this because possibly my perception was not mature enough to understand. That evening, the same evening, he gave a discourse on Viveka Chudamani to the local population. At the end of it, he called me and handed me a small pamphlet. He said, this is 1986, mind you. And it was a small pamphlet in English about some Hindu mission hospital at Trichinapalli and about some request for some donations. He said, you translate it in Hindi and tell this audience. There itself. So I took the pamphlet, read it, immediately translated in Hindi because I had a good command on Hindi being there.
Madhya Pradesh.
I translated and ended it. After that, as is customary, I prostrated. The moment I prostrated and got up, he said, if you permit me, I'll use the Tamil and translate it in English. Koncham varsham kazhinju. Unakku indha mari oru hospital dhaan vela paarkanum. After some years, you will also be working in a similar hospital. That was a charitable hospital, mind you. So I said, what is this man? Means, of all things, he's telling that I'll be working in a charitable hospital, and where possibly my parents were building dreams that this man will be in a corporate hospital with a Mercedes Benz and all. And you will not believe, I came to Super Specialty Hospital on August 1st, 1993. The moment I entered, my wife was with me, my father was with me. This same incident came into my mind. This hospital, this temple of healing created by Bhagavan is the ultimate in charity. So when I landed here, and you'll be surprised, my appointment was a contract for 1 year. My wife was very much scared because 1 year, what will 1 year? I said, fine. The Lord who has brought us here, He will see to it that we don't starve. At the end of 1 year, we'll think. And 6 months after, one fine day, a new order comes telling that your original order is cancelled. We'll treat the 1 year as a probationary period, and on completion, we'll regularize it.
Very good. Now, coming to something which all our listeners like to hear, have you had any interesting medical experiences where you have directly felt the presence of Swami?
First sentence I would like to say is that, to me, every moment when I deal with a patient is definitely a miracle of Swami. Of course, people will say, what's so great about it? It's normal human nature or tendency that people like sensational events.
Right.
Yes. And I have a good share of them. Only thing is...
No, but I would like to compliment you on your first remark. I think that is an extraordinarily profound and important remark, and I'm glad you made it. Its value is not understood. People like only these sensational experiences. They don't realize that everything is a divine experience.
To me, yes. Even treating a common cold and cough is equally sensational.
Now, coming to what I call the sensational stories, our listeners like to hear them. So maybe one or two you could tell us.
Yes. If you could permit me, there are quite a few. But at least two.
We'll take them one at a time. So we'll get you back later for more stories. So let's have one of them.
One of them is because it involves a very, very great personality of this country, who incidentally happens to be in the staff of our hospital also. Revered as the father of urology of this country, Professor.
You're referring to Dr. Bhatt.
Professor H.S. Bhatt. We call him the Bhishma Pitama in the hospital. And in fact, for all of us, he is a grandfather figure. And we go to him irrespective of his attachment to urology for any of the medical doubts we have. Professor Bhatt walks in at 11:30 a.m. to the chamber where I am sitting. And in his usual jocular self comes and tells me, last night I had some kind of a discomfort. Anyway, I thought must be some stomach upset. So today morning I came and told your department chief, why don't you do an ECG and echo for me? He said, sir, I'm a little bit busy now. If you don't mind, why can't you come around 11:30? So I came, I found that man is not there in the room. So I decided to come to your room. He said, fine, sir. Now, Professor Bhatt, many a times like this has come to me, the person concerned, me itself. And he'll come and tell like this. I'll go along with him, take his ECG, take his echo. Every time I'll say, sir, everything is fine by Bhagwan's grace. You are really fit like a fiddle. And he'll go laughing, cracking some jokes. This time I went along with him, took the ECG. My heart sank. He had features in the ECG of an extensive damage to the heart.
My God.
Number one. Number two, at that point in time, I am in a conflict. How to reveal this to him? Here is a man who is revered almost like a godlike figure in medicine, and here I am just...
But the funny thing is, he himself felt something was wrong with him.
he had some kind of a
gut feeling.
No, because like this, see, it becomes a routine, no? Once in 6 months he'll come, hey Thambi, I am, why don't you
that's true, but that's not for a checkup. He was feeling uneasy.
Uneasy the previous night.
Not at that time.
Not at that time. So he thought, why not I have a checkup?
Okay.
It lasted for a very short duration. He himself said, as per his history. When I saw that, then I told, sir, I have to know how to break it to him. He's a medical man, much senior than me. Anyway, somehow I managed to bring him to the echo room. The echo confirms the territories where the damage has occurred. This one confirmed it because the person concerned doing the echo was the same who had done it many times in the past also. So now we had to move him immediately, urgently to the critical care unit. The biggest problem was to break it to Professor Bhatt and to convince him that he has to sit on a wheelchair and go to the critical care unit. So he said...
He had come walking into your room.
He walked into the room. And then I told, sir, I think we'll have to observe you a bit. If you don't mind, we'll just take you to the CCU and just watch. Why, is it something alarming? As usual.
Blunt and direct.
I said, it's not a question of alarming, sir. You are our most revered senior and you came with some complaints. And there are some, because I can't make him upset at that point in time. So I thought it is better and prudent. Okay, fine, come, let's walk along to the CCU. I literally fell at his feet. I said, sir, for God's sake, don't do that. Be seated. He refused. Finally, we have one Mr. Anil Patil, one of Swami's students who happens to work with us. He's the senior technical officer in cardiology. I called him. But sir has got a special soft corner for him. I said, look, Patil, this is the problem. You please convince, we all reverentially and lovingly call him Bhatt Tata, you granddad of the hospital. You please convince Bhatt Tata. I came out, I rang up the CCU. I told my chief, such and such thing, this is the finding, please keep everything ready, because he has literally, it's like minutes are ticking off and the time bomb will go off anytime. He has come with that much damage.
My God.
Somehow we convince him.
This was how many years ago? 3 years ago?
3 years ago. And I am on, that is precisely in the month of August 2000, when I have a fracture on my left leg. I am on a plaster cast. With the plaster cast, I wheeled Professor Bhatt, went up, we put him on the bed, hooked up to the monitor and all. When I am moving him on the wheelchair, he made one statement. Okay, Dr. Iyyer, whatever it is, you do whatever you want. But see, it's already 11:45. Mrs. Bhatt will be waiting for me for the lunch. So see to it how you tell it. See his concern at that point in time.
But he had sensed it.
Sir,
obviously, he knows what's going on.
What going on, though we may not put it in words, he was aware of it. We took him, put there. Meanwhile, what happened was, you see, Bhatt sir is, as I told, is almost like a godlike figure. The news flies fast. Somehow somebody told Mrs. Bhatt, and by the time he's put on the bed, Mrs. Bhatt is right there in the CCU. Anyway, he was fully conscious. His vital parameters were stable by Swami's grace. Message was somehow sent to Bhagwan. And you will not believe, sir, within 35-40 minutes, Bhagwan is at bedside of Professor Bhatt.
I remember that day very well. We were all waiting for darshan and Swami didn't come for a long time, 1 hour late.
He's at the bedside and he comes and in chaste Tamil, he tells, first question he asks, Bhagwan in chaste Tamil, he's asking Mrs. Bhatt. He didn't talk to Professor Bhatt. He asked, did you inform your children? She said, yes. Who asked you to inform? Precisely to prevent you from doing that only, I came running to see
Swami is very particular about that.
Then he asked, did you inform Guru, who incidentally happens to be their first son who is in Canada? She said, no, don't inform him. I am there, I'll take care. Swamiji sat, metilized some vibhuti, gave to Professor Bhatt and told everything will be fine, don't worry. Came out, told to us, doctor said, just give him medicines. Don't ever toy with the idea of angiogram and surgery and all. Mind you, this is coming from Bhagwan. Fine. Bhagwan meant away. And while he was moving out of the CC, he said, don't discharge him till I tell. But sir recovered. He stayed with us for almost 2 months.
I remember, I used to visit him.
For almost 2 months. Now, herein, of course, with due apologies, my scientific curiosity, this man, the age of 80 years, comes with such an extensive heart attack. And because of his age, we couldn't do anything aggressive. We just gave the routine medicines and this man is Fine. I couldn't resist my temptation, so I said I should see some serial electrocardiograms. I should see the echo also. And let me tell you, this is 2003. It's almost 3 years complete. It was around month of August. I have been following up on his ECGs and echo. They are absolutely normal. And you are also seeing him every day in the darshan.
Absolutely.
Now, to me, from the medical point of view, at that age, with such an extensive damage, with no trace of damage currently present, in the absence of any kind of or so-called professed medications or interventions, what more you want? This is just one. I have a whole stock of it. Sometimes I joke with my wife that maybe if I chronicle it, I can publish it as a book. Because each one of these is a challenge to our so-called false superiority or sense of false pride, which we feel that, oh, we are the ultimate. I have done 2,000 angioplasties or 4,000 valvuloplasties. It's nonsense.
Absolute nonsense.
It's nonsense. And one word, if you kindly permit me to say, I always had a clash with this karma theory. Always had a clash. By reading so many books, I came across a very beautiful term called Rananubandhan. And today I have come to accept that whatever kind of interactions I have with a patient X or a patient Y who gets benefit by way of a service utilizing these hands is a pure Rananubandhan which I have with him, with Bhagwan being the puppeteer, we being the puppets. He plays the strings. He just brings the two people together who have a Rananubandhan, sees to it that the thing is done. And most importantly, what I find is all those instances wherein we could approach a patient with a sense of total surrender, things went off very well. All instances wherein the tiny bit of the pride or ego cropped in, always you were faced with problems.
I will wrap it up with recall of a story that Swami says regarding ego and surrender. I think they refer to Sant Ramdas, if I'm not mistaken. He had written the story of Lord Rama and palm leaves. And someday, I don't know whether it was wife or something, usually wives get mad at these kind of sage husbands. All these palm leaves were thrown into the river. And then many of the leaves sank. 90% of them sank. Only 10% survived. And he cried, oh, I did so much, I wrote, everything is gone. But at least I've got these things left. When he went and looked at what was left, he found that all those things that sank were poems or hymns that were written with ego. They drowned. And these were written in the spirit of surrender. And they alone survived. This is a story I heard Swami narrate. And I think the sum and substance of what you have been telling us portrays very effectively the sense of karma yoga. When the Acharya told you, you don't need any mantra, the thought that came to my mind was, he was telling me, I've already been given the Upadesham of karma yoga. Where is the need to give you another mantra? Is there a better mantra than karma yoga? And the interesting point about your narration was that you are not just a robotic karma yogi, you are an inquiring karma yogi. So there was an aspect of you that had devotion, the way you described Swami, for example. And there was also an aspect of you that was that one associates with the jignaso, the seeker. So in your narration, as you were speaking, I was able to see the 3 steps which form the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Work to worship to wisdom. Karma to bhakti to jnana. And you have very beautifully captured for us the essence of all these things, these 3 steps to divinity and how they can become a part of our normal life so that life itself becomes spiritualized. I think at this point I must extend to you an invitation to come to us again and again and again and tell more of those fund of stories that you have a stock of, because I'm quite sure our listeners are going to pester me for more and more of them. So let me thank you and express the hope that you'll be with us again sometime when your duty permits you the leisure. Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.